Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap an American buddy comedy drama film starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence called Life. Spoilers incoming. At Mississippi State Penitentiary Cemetery sometime in 1997, a priest is brought in to conduct a burial service for two lifelong inmates. After the last rites, two young convicts tasked to bury the bodies are enthused by an elderly convict, Willie Long, who is close to the deceased. While drinking a special hooch, he tells them a long story about his friend's colorful life. It is 1932 in New York City. At a snazzy uptown Harlem club, petty thief Ray Gibson convinces a bouncer to let him inside. Inside the club is a professional crook, Claude Banks, who is shunned by his girlfriend, Daisy, for not proposing marriage and is later threatened by some goons over money he owes. The two men meet inside the bathroom, and Ray excitedly claims Claude is an old high school friend while stealing his wallet. As fate allows, the thieves' lives are intertwined since they are under the watchful eye of the club's owner, Spanky. Later, they are forcibly brought in front of the mafioso, who intends to get paid. While the goons hang Claude upside down to drown him in the river, Ray attempts to convince Spanky to let them pay off their debt via bootlegging, trafficking Mississippi hooch. The club owner sets the two men free and drives south the following day. Claude, visibly reluctant to come along, tells Ray he needs to clear his debts to move on as a successful banker. In contrast, Ray is planning to earn enough money to set up a casino business of his own called Ray's Boom Boom Room. Along the way, the two men rest up to eat at a local diner. Little do they know that the owners prohibit people of color inside their establishment, and they send them off right away, threatening to kill them. The terrified pair apologize and leave awkwardly. Despite the unfortunate incident, they arrive at a town populated by black people. Ray meets with a contact to buy a truckload of Mississippi hooch while getting invited to unwind in a local tavern. Claude is initially hesitant, so he gives him $2 to wait outside, only for Claude to come along anyway to observe him. As some minutes pass, Ray is betting big on a poker table while Claude sits quietly at the bar side. A woman, Sylvia, approaches him to convince him to spend his remaining money to sleep with her. While this goes on, Ray is enjoying the game, despite losing some money to the players. Sitting across from him is a well-known card hustler, Winston Hancock, who bets considerable money to even the stakes. Realizing he does not have enough, he bets on his father's prized pocket watch. He then reveals a full house of cards, only to be beaten by Hancock's hand, which is four of a kind. After the game ends, Ray sits remorseful but grows angry when he discovers that the waitress planted the winning cards under the coaster of his drink. He storms out looking for Hancock, who is confronted by racist Sheriff Warren Pike and killed in a fit of rage. Back inside the bar, Claude confesses that he no longer has any money to get them through the night, so the two men abruptly leave. Unfortunately, they accidentally stumble upon Hancock's dead body and get discovered by local patrolmen, who are immediately suspicious. The two men are locked up temporarily at the station, where Sheriff Pike uses the opportunity to frame them for the murder since colored people are being shunned by the community. Hoping to get a fair trial to prove their innocence, Ray and Claude are shocked when a Mississippi judge sentences them to life in prison at the state penitentiary. A day passes as the pair are transported with other black convicts to the internment camp. As they get processed at Camp 8, they meet Sergeant Dillard, who strictly deliberates the rules at the prison, including the fact they will get shot when they cross the gun line. He gives authority to Hop and Bob to keep the inmates in line and guide them in the bunkhouse, where a young Willie Long is incarcerated. While out on the quarry digging, they fuel the ire of the sergeant after constant complaints over their hard labor, something they are not used to back in New York. During break time, the two men mingle with the inmates. Ray meets Poker Face, helping him read a letter about his family's tragedy since he is illiterate. On the other side, Claude chats with Jangled Leg and is initially befriending him until Hop and Bob calls him out, revealing that he is trying to flirt with Claude, hence his infamous name. As everyone eats in the cafeteria, Claude complains about the food and the utensils, with Ray asking him to adjust. They continue talking with the rest of the inmates, including Willie, Biscuit, Cookie the chef, and Radio. The men share their reasons for being incarcerated in the first place. All seem to be concerning a murder of some kind, from relatives to Santa Claus. Feeling out of business, Ray boasts a lie that he and Claude are notorious serial killers who have spread a reputation around the country. His toughness is tested when a bully, Goldmouth, demands his cornbread, leading to a courtyard fight outside. Despite the size difference, Ray can get a few punches at the bully, but in the end, he is overpowered by him. Willie calls off the fight and requests Goldmouth to let him recuperate, having proved his worth. On a fine Sunday morning, the penitentiary allows visitations from the inmates who loved us. After church, everyone gets to unwind, including Claude, who is visited by Daisy. After paying the sergeant a few cents to get married, the pair are allowed to make love in the quarters. Meanwhile, Ray tells the inmates about his plan to build the Boom Boom Room once free. Later, Daisy tells Claude that his lawyer cousin, Melvin, is working to appeal his case for him and Ray. He does not like this, demanding she should be more concerned about his welfare than his partner in crime. As a new morning dawns, Ray tries to convince Claude of an escape plan with a map he drew out, but he dismisses him. In the middle of the night, the inmates continue talking about Ray's club business, having been amused by the idea. They love it so much that they fantasize about what they will do in the club. As Ray talks about how fancy it will look, the extended dream sequence is cut short by an irritated Hoppin' Bob, who orders the men to sleep it off. The next morning, Sergeant Dillard distributes some letters for the inmates, with one coming from Melvin, the attorney. However, instead of good news, Claude is disheartened when he finds out his cousin seduced his girlfriend into marriage and failed the court appeal. He turns back to Ray, insisting on joining his scheme, but he becomes resentful of Claude, feeling that he is being taken advantage of for being too soft in his judgment. The pair have a brief scuffle, only to be broken up by Hoppin' Bob. Claude is surprised when Ray reveals he intentionally wanted to start a fight with him to steal the counting rocks so they can escape. In the thick darkness, they leave the bunkhouse and quietly sneak into the forest. Soon enough, the guards are alerted and a search party heads out. Unfortunately for the pair, they get lost since they are unable to follow the map Ray made. Sergeant Dillard recovers them both near the outskirts of Tallahatchie and brings them to Superintendent Abernathy, who punishes them by locking them inside the isolation holes for a whole day. 12 years passed, and World War I happens in 1944. By this time, a new set of inmates are brought into the penitentiary, including a simple-minded, young, mute inmate dubbed by many as Can't Get Right. Claude, now spearheading the baseball games, encourages him to play, only for him and Ray to be shocked at how talented he is in the sport. The following day, Claude is visited by a Negro League scout, Stan Blocker, who offers a pardon for Can't Get Right as long as he plays on his team. With that huge opportunity, Claude and Ray introduce themselves as his handlers. Though the boy performs well, he is often engrossed with the superintendent's daughter, May Rose, who is now a beautiful adult woman engaged to a wealthy man. After many ball games, Stan chats with Ray and Claude about the boy's future and promises to get them out with a plea bargain. One night, Abernathy is shocked to find May Rose giving birth to a biracial boy. He summons all the inmates to the courtyard the next morning and examines them one by one to find the father. The inmates, including Claude and Ray, humorously claim to be the boy's father in an attempt to irritate the superintendent while sparing the truth that it is Can't Get Right all along. Sometime after the superintendent leaves Camp 8, the inmates hold a dance social. Claude indices Sylvia to visit, which leads her to bring all some escorts to entertain the men. While this continues, Biscuit reveals his inner conflict to Ray about being released soon since his family is unaware of his homosexuality. Though Ray encourages him to rejoin society and enjoy freedom, the inmate runs toward the gun line to commit suicide. Everyone is shocked and heartbroken as he gets shot in the back. Eventually, Stan returns to the penitentiary and orders the release of Can't Get Right. Unfortunately, Ray and Claude are left behind, having not been mentioned in the release papers, causing Claude to get highly frustrated. However, he still allows the boy to attain his freedom, and in exchange, Can't Get Right throws him a blue squeeze ball, showing his gratitude for teaching him how to play. As he leaves, Ray tries to get Claude into another escape plan, but he snaps back at him, having exhausted his resources with the pardon deal. They end up having a bitter fallout, and over the next few years, they do not speak to each other, even as Ray tries several escape attempts by himself, each failing miserably. Time goes on, as many significant world events happen, along with the passing of many fellow inmates, except Willie. One day in 1972, a disillusioned Claude runs past the borderline to steal a delicious apple pie and is later punished by Sergeant Dillard, ordering him to stand barefoot on a case of bottles for the whole day. The sergeant approaches Ray, offering to release him should he shoot Claude for moving away from his spot. However, he refuses, much to the disdain of Dillard, who administers the same punishment to him. While balancing themselves, the two men start talking again, albeit begrudgingly, about their predicament. Claude is visibly touched by his friend's gesture and finally apologizes to make amends. A new day dawns and Dillard reveals to the pair that they will clear out their belongings and transfer to Superintendent Dexter Wilkins' mansion right away to become workers. Once there, Ray is not pleased to do yard work, while he sees Claude working inside as a housekeeper. Somehow, Claude befriends Wilkins, who is sympathetic to their plight, having been incarcerated for 40 years. Later at night, Ray reveals his jealousy over his friendship with their owner while also suspicious of his motives, believing he is brewing an escape plan. The next day, he grows angry at Claude for being entrusted to pick up the new superintendent, despite his lack of driving skills. While waiting at the bus station, Claude is shocked when Wilkins introduces Sheriff Warren Pike, the man who wrongfully framed them for killing Hancock years ago. Fortunately, the sheriff does not recognize him right away. Later, while the superintendents hunt pheasants, Ray notices that Pike has his father's pocket watch and tries taunting him for the truth. Grabbing the shotgun, he angrily tells Wilkins that Pike framed him and Claude for murder. Despite the revelation, the sheriff coldly admits his wrongdoing but justifies they were given a light sentence for doing 40 years of cheap labor for the state of Mississippi. As Claude struggles to take the gun away from Ray, Pike aims at them with his pistol, only for Wilkins to shoot him. Realizing that the men are innocent, the friendly superintendent covers up the incident to the police, claiming it was a hunting accident. For the first time in a while, the two men become hopeful for another pardon, thanks to Wilkins. Unfortunately, the superintendent suffers a fatal heart attack in his bathroom, again throwing away their chances at freedom. More years pass, and in 1997, Ray and Claude, now senior citizens, live inside the prison infirmary. They enthuse some young inmates, including an elderly Willie, in a game of cards. While on a Jell-O pudding break, Claude tells Ray about a visionary new plan. Even though Ray accepts the life they're living now. Later that night, the infirmary catches fire, and the men seemingly die after engulfing in flames. In the morning, the detective and rescue team recover the bodies of two casualties. Returning to the burial site, the two young workers feel differently at the reveal of the men's fate, with one crying out of sadness. Willie then concludes his story by detailing Claude's plan. It turns out Claude and Ray stole two bodies from the morgue and started the inferno on purpose while planting the corpses before escaping in the fire trucks. The two men seem confused since the amused Willie does not explicitly say whether the plan worked. In actuality, Ray and Claude have survived, having fled to New York City right after the ingenious escape. The old men step out one day to watch a Yankees baseball game. Though they have a few bouts of short-term memory issues, they have become closer than ever, celebrating their freedom while deciding to live together in Harlem. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.